Guys, another home run of SL's Wisdom podcast with Rob Napoli. He is podcast host, author, trainer, speaker, board member, and pizza lover like myself, especially the Napolitan one.
Yeah.
I guess he told me pre-interview that he loves to eat it cold as well, which is interesting. Rob, can
Don't
you
come at
introduce
me. Don't
yourself?
come at
And
me now.
yeah, sorry because eating cold pizza. I mean, it's good once you don't have a microwave or anything to heat it up. But yeah, that makes you a Rob Napoli. So tell us a bit more about yourself, Rob. How do you define the Rob himself?
Yeah. I've never had to ask that question asked like that directly, but I love it. I define myself really as like a very curious person, and very a lifelong learner. I'm always striving. Like my biggest fear is being average. Like
Okay.
I always tell people that my biggest fear is to be average,
Hmm.
which has led me to kind of do a lot of things. I've lived a few different lives, so I'll kind of go quick. My career started. I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri, in the Midwest. Spent some time living in Iowa. Met my now wife in small town Iowa. Um, when I was in Iowa, I was doing recruitment for software, and this is right after the collapse of 2008, 2009. I was working
Hmm.
in a town that was very heavily on financial services, so kind of
Shit.
rebuilding back up on how to be recession proof, and I was doing a lot of staffing for really big projects. Met my now wife, and she told me pretty quickly in a relationship that when she graduated university, she was moving to Europe to get a master's degree.
Okay.
She didn't do long distance, so either break up now and in the heartache, or would I want to move? And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So I quit my
Wow.
job. I moved to Italy. I lived in Milano for 2 years, coaching professional
Okay.
American football,
Okay.
and getting a master's degree and working for a startup. I worked for a startup. I was head of brand and content, helped scale it, sold to every country around the world. I've been able to sell into every country I've legally been allowed to sell into. One time I made the mistake of selling into a country I was not able to sell into. That was a fun kind of experience. Not really. Don't do it. Um, and then I came to New York City through an accelerator program, worked in large global corporate, started my own sales agency. So I worked as a software or sales as a service business, grew that for 3 years, sold it. And I spent the last 2.5 years starting a podcast. I wrote a book on personal branding and doing a lot of coaching on sales, coaching on brand, and really working with founders on how to scale into this market, really kind of go to market entrepreneurship. So a little bit of everything. Currently, I'm head of brand and marketing for a hospitality fintech called OmniBoost, helping them go global. So, a lot of different things,
Yeah.
and I love that I get to do all those things.
Yeah, and my first question, kind of a philosophical one, because I get that question too. How would you describe yourself? Why do you think it's so hard for us, let's call us entrepreneurial folks, to describe ourselves? And why do you think we don't often think about that? Is it, lack of ego, or just like being creative and trying all sorts of stuff, being this soul going left and right? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't actually think it's a lack of ego. I think people in general have a hard time describing who they are as a person because that's scary. Intrinsically looking at yourself, and this is why they say like you got to look in the mirror and have that conversation with yourself. The scariest thing you do, actually, I had a coach and a friend of mine. We were talking about some difficulties, and she said, "Grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and have a conversation with yourself." It's like the fuck, have a conversation with myself, and that was really hard, right? A lot of us have a hard time talking to ourselves and looking at who we are intrinsically because we're so worried about what others think of us that we don't
Right.
take the time to think about what is it that we're putting out there. Who do we want to be? I think that's why it's so hard for anyone to really answer that question, let alone, even harder, I think, the more kind of entrepreneurial you are because you're doing so many different things. It's really kind of hard to define yourself.
Right.
So I think it gets harder as you do more things.
Right. I would replace that cup of coffee with a cup of ayahuasca or with a cup of mushrooms or something. Um, I've did various of these introspection. To me, I never had a problem defining like who my core is. It's still this young, ambitious kid. I think I've always been a kind soul as well, and I never want to lose touch with that. It's sometimes it's hard, right, with ego when you have haters and so forth. But I never really want to lose touch with that. And I think that the vision almost stays the same. Like how has your vision changed over the years? Has it been like similar to the younger Rob, Was he in charge mostly of defining that, or has it changed over the years?
Definitely younger Rob does no, has no idea. I still don't think I have any idea. I was at a party this not too long ago, and we were having a great conversation. Somebody asked, "What did you want to be when you were younger?"
Yeah.
And everyone is very clearly like, "I wanted to be a vet. I want to be this." I actually don't know. Um, I knew that I wanted to be in sports. Like that's what I thought, right? Like as a young athlete, like I want to make it to the league or something. But I never thought of like what I wanted to be as a profession. Like I never had that like from a kid. I wanted to be a vet. I never. I don't know.
Mm,
And I've always felt like I've never truly belonged. In a lot of things I've done. I felt like I've been accepted and I've loved it, and they were all stages. But I've never kind of felt that true sense of belonging. Um, so that's all to say. Why the thing I know to be self evident about myself is that I'm afraid of being average.
okay.
That's my biggest fear, and I'm curious. I love to learn. Like I'm kind of a know it all in the fact that if I don't know something, I'll go learn it. Like I like knowing the answer to stuff, and I like learning about stuff, and I
Right.
love the challenge when someone tells me something that I don't know. And it's like, oh shit, I get to go learn something new. Let's go. Like I love
Right.
that. So I think that it's always been myself to find a sense of belonging and learning from a young age. It's just that's why I've always been curious. I think it's just something that's been instilled in me, and it's partly because I'm still at 35 trying to find my path, and I think
Right.
that's what's beautiful about it. I think we
Mm,
are so ingrained to have to be in a box defined at a certain age, and I've always kind of been like, nah, I'm gonna go up my own way. I'm
right.
gonna go learn, explore, um and just figure it out, and I don't
Right.
have to have it figured out because that's the cool thing, and I've been able to develop and do some really cool things like that. I think kind of to your kind of background, like looking at your before we were pre-chatting and getting to know each other, you've done a lot of different things, right? You've started different businesses, had different experiences, all because um, curiosity, because
Right.
you're still figuring those things out, and some things that are truth about yourself, but you're also like kind of me, like you love learning, and it's like we start talking about sports and food and training and like all these other things because we're just curious people, and I think
Right.
that's a beautiful thing.
It doesn't need to be one thing. Also, it can be like, yeah, a lot of people will hate on the Elon Musk model, but I still very much like it to try to be good at multiple things. I won't say polymath, but just experiencing and tasting all the colors of the rainbow in that aspect of your life. Because I definitely can't picture my career counselor at 15 years old guiding me in the right direction. My younger self didn't have any idea of what life was,
Yeah,
except video games, women, and drugs and alcohol back in these days. I really wish like there would be a better education system, as we were talking. Me, it's always been somewhat of, yeah, ADHD team in my life. I don't like to use that word, but first I wanted to become a lawyer, then a doctor, then a dentist, like my grandfather. And I ended up like having shitty grades high school. I ended up not being accepted as a lawyer, and thank God, because that would have boosted my ego and made me not the person I wanted to be today. I think
mhm.
founder is like really the best job because you can try a bunch of things. Sales is definitely fun as well because you get to speak up to a bunch of people, and then you kind of upgrade your mental algorithm and say, oh, I like this, and oh, maybe I don't want to give up that. Maybe I want to do podcasting for my whole life. For example,
Yeah,
podcasting being one of my favorite model to get to meet new people. It's kind of an excuse, to pick brains and get free consulting and get free connections. Kind of.
yeah,
What do you think
100%.
about podcasting?
Yeah, I mean, I love podcasting. I hit 100 episodes not too long ago. I think we're like 105 or 106 on my podcast. I've been able to be a guest on 40 plus, pushing I
Nice.
think almost 50. I love it, and honestly, it's part of the beauty of my network over the last few years has come from this ability in a podcast just to get to know cool people and figure out kind of connections and get to know them a little bit at a different level,
Right.
right? And it's I love it, and I'm a podcast junkie. About to launch another podcast for the company I work for, doing something really cool in the hospitality tech space.
Right.
Um, so I'm kind of back to the drawing board of like launching a new podcast, which I'm really excited about. Um,
Pretty
I
cool.
think that it's such a just beautiful way. Any type of opportunity to get to meet people, but not
Right.
just meet them, right? There's meeting somebody and there's intentionally meeting somebody.
Hmm.
with the intention that we're having a conversation, right? You know,
Right.
sharing things about ourselves in a public forum that we might not do on a regular basis. And that's the beauty of podcasting, right? It
Right.
allows for barriers to come down and have real, intense, beautiful conversations with people,
Yeah.
and in a platform that allows others to get to learn and experience from that. So I love podcasting as an art form. It's actually one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
Ever since I remember podcasting started, I wanted to have a podcast, and I finally did it.
Yeah.
Uh, and I haven't looked back. It's honestly one of the most joyful things in my life.
Yeah, same here. And you kind of need to overcome the transparency barrier and putting your life out there. Yeah, mostly pro that. Certainly, I don't believe much in privacy. And even if I would, it's like believe in inequality. Nothing's equal in this life. Everything's unequal. And yeah, you just need to kind of roll with it. Sometimes they guess if you're good enough, well, they will forget actually that they're being recorded, right? And that's where they can share the true value. I happen to not believe much in copyrights as well. Like if you're in this human society, you need to share value. And
Yeah.
yes, you need to ask for value, whether the market is going to pay you for that. But with all the open AI thing, the saga nowadays of like, oh, if they had the proprietary rights to fetch this data and build an algorithm. Well, I'm sitting on a chair that someone built. I'm being filmed by a computer that Wozniak and Steve Jobs pictured, and
Yep.
with this wonderful Shure mic that a guy 100x smarter than I am with audio created. And
Yeah.
I'm talking to Rob here, which I mean, yeah, you have tons of good values to share under this Zoom call, which I didn't create it. So, any opinions on folks that are
Yeah.
more transparent vs not transparent?
A lot actually. So I wrote a book called The Social Soul, and it's all about leveraging your personal and professional brands to be authentic and intentional, right? We have to be intentional, authentic. And one of the books that I always recommend people read, especially entrepreneurs, is a book by Austin Cleon called Steal Like an Artist.
Yeah,
In
I think
today's
I
day
read
and
that one.
age, with all of the ability for us to learn and grow,
Yeah.
right? With us all having cell phones in our pocket, right? Gary Vee said, you should never not know something because you can Google it,
Yep.
right? In this day and age, I don't believe there's much original thought. What we do is we hear and learn something, and then we figure a way to internalize that, and then we can teach that out with our experience.
Mm.
What I don't like, what I see a lot of happening on LinkedIn cringe, is like people will see somebody else post that do really well, and they'll copy and paste it and try to play it off as their own. And I get
Yeah.
where people get pissed off about that,
Yeah.
but at the end of the
That's
day,
dishonest.
like, you know, you can't tell me like you say this one thing. It's like I've heard it a million times. Or I've said it before. You can't think that your cool thing is really original, but
Mm.
it's you using your platform from your experience, and that's an amazing thing. And we need to
Right.
do more of that. Everyone needs to be able to do it. But people who are out there creating, they don't need to create content just to create. What they should do is be coming from an intentional, authentic place. If you
Mm.
have something you want to share that you learn from somebody else, you can give them credit.
Right.
Or you need to make it make sense from your perspective, from your own story. You can't just copy and paste.
Right.
So from that perspective, I get it, but I really don't believe much in original thought. I think originality is what originality is your ability to learn something, intrinsically understand it, and then share that with the world in your own tone of voice. And the
Right.
originality comes in the fact that you authentically share it with your intention to give value from something you learned from somebody else in a way that others in your network that look up to you can digest and take something from.
Right. I think there's this biosynchronicity in nature and everything we do that it's like win-win, just that most humans don't realize it, that they view it as win-loss, very much anchored in primitiveness, kind of these humans are, and myself included sometimes. I do think, yes, giving the credits to people. I do think there should exist some system that could quantify the fact that we're all interrelated and constantly adding value to one another. Like this can also connect to the Spotify conversation about AI, and AI, they're not going to use AI because they value the artists. Artists have been like taken advantage of since like very long time, but I do believe in a technical solution to that, meaning that, okay, you listen to the song while you pay in some format. So that's the challenge that they face. I also think that staying true to your values at least, and yeah, give people the credits, because sometimes some people, they will go very, very deep in something and never in 100 years I would go like and create LLMs, for example. So I need to give them something back, you know.
Yeah.
Although I already am just by paying taxes, for example, and being part of this society. So interesting topic. We already have like 2 minutes left, so I want to kind of ask you some specific questions I had
Yeah.
that piqued my interest. One of which is you're like you do strongman in your part time. So tell us a bit more about that and how does it like link to your actual work?
Yeah, great question. So I haven't really done strongman as much anymore, but like lately.
Okay.
Um, but I mean, I've always worked out. Like I've been an athlete, I power lift, and I still like go to the gym quite often. And what I love about strongman and what I love just in general about lifting is that I believe that no one needs to be the strongest person in the world, but everyone and every human should be what I call functionally strong.
Right.
Right. And being a functionally strong human in the gym correlates into you as a functionally strong human in your work life and your personal life. And so for me, working out really has, and there's tons of health effects to it, but doing something with a competition, why I like strongman is you're competing for something, even though I'm not competing on a big stage, competing with myself to get a little bit better each day challenges me to always have that mentality of just what it means to be functionally strong, right? Functionally strong in that you can move your own body weight, that you can do these things, because that translates into your ability to overcome challenges and face adversity in relationships, which I think we as a society have done not a great job managing relationships because it's so easy to move on to the next thing. In our business lives, the difference between good and bad entrepreneurs is those that are willing to push through. So I think that all comes from a baseline and working out and challenging yourself in strongman or powerlifting, or even just going to the gym and putting in a little bit of work, a little bit more than you did yesterday, allows you to create that mindset and mentality of internal motivation and growth.
Right. And in a strongman's case, being functionally strong means picking up a fridge by yourself and going down the stairs. Small parenthesis. Um, but yeah, like what I love about strong men is also just like, oh shit, I'm about to lift 400 pounds or 600 or in some crazy case 1 ton. And then like how is that even possible, you know? And then you
Yeah.
actually do it, and then priming yourself, you know, to actually do this. And the power of the mind, you know, like because it all happens in the mind at first, and you need to have that myelin connection that
Yeah.
will fire at the right time, the right bio chemical in your brain that will make you like have this adrenaline rush and then lift it. It's just like an
Yeah.
incredible fucking feeling. So yeah, props to you to
Thanks.
be doing that. Already over, unfortunately, but like let's do another one of these. Rob, that was quite cool. Feel we could talk for ages. Where can people
Yeah.
find out more about you?
Yeah. The best place is robnapoli.com. My website has all my links. So if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all that is tied in there. My podcast, my book, all of it is at robnapoli.com. It's an easy place, ROB. N is a Nancy, A is an Apple, P is in Paul, OLI.com. And you'll have access to everything. If I can ever be of service to you out there, shoot me a message. Let me know you heard me on this pod with Charles, and always happy to have a chat.